Right, Lamai. Today we are going to discuss our 12th paper. In this paper, we will discuss questions related to vectors. Right, Pude? Let's see the questions. Right, Pude, read the question. Five couple of forces acting on an object are given below. These are the forces, right? Which couple, which couple cannot be used to obtain 4 Newton resultant? Right, Pude? To identify the answer, first you need to check the maximum and minimum resultant they can produce, right, Pude? Let's see. For the first two forces are equal in magnitude, 2 Newton and 3 Newton. Therefore, you can identify the maximum resultant when they are acting in same direction, 2 Newton and 3 Newton. The maximum resultant is 5 Newton. What is the minimum resultant? They produce minimum resultant when they are acting in opposite direction. When theta equals 0, they produce maximum resultant. When theta is equal to 180 degree, they produce minimum resultant. What is the minimum resultant? Difference between the two magnitudes, 1 Newton. Pute. Now you can identify the answer. Pute. 4 Newton can exist between these two values. No? Therefore, these two forces can produce 4 Newton resultant, right? According to these maximum and minimum resultant of these two vectors should be equal or greater than 1 Newton, should be less than or equal 5 Newton. That is, 4 Newton can be exist between 5 and 1. Therefore, these two forces can produce 4 Newton resultant, but you should remember angle between the two vector should be set accordingly, right? Right. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ දෙන්නට පුළුවන් නේද ළමයි? Then try to identify the maximum and minimum resultant can produce 2 Newton and 5 Newton. They can produce maximum resultant when they are acting in same direction. Maximum resultant is 7 Newton. They produce minimum resultant when they are acting in opposite direction. Then the answer is R minimum 3 Newton. Therefore, you can say the resultant of these two vectors should be equal or greater than 3 Newton, should be less than or equal 7 Newton. Then ඔයාලට පේනවා පුතේ 4 Newton can exist between 7 and 4 no? 7 and 3 නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ ළමයි මේ දෙන්නට resultant එක 4 Newton හදන්න පුළුවන්, but you should remember angle between the two vector 2 Newton and 5 Newton should be set accordingly, right? Angle එක set වෙන්න ඕන, right? These two forces can produce 4 Newton resultant, right? Can identify the maximum and minimum resultant that can produce by 1 Newton and 5 Newton. They produce maximum resultant when the angle between the two vectors is 0. That is when they are acting in parallel direction. R max is 6 Newton. Minimum resultant, they produce minimum resultant when they are acting in the opposite direction. 5 Newton and 1 Newton. When the angle between the two vectors is 180. Minimum resultant is equal to 4 Newton. That is, the resultant of two vector can be equal or greater than 4 Newton, equal or less than 6 Newton. That is, they can produce 0 resultant. Why? 4 Newton can be exist between 4 and 6. Yeah, 4 වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේ ළමයි. Right? They can produce 0 resultant. Then you can identify, then you can consider the fourth choice. In the fourth choice, what is the maximum resultant? Maximum resultant is 7 plus 1, 8 Newton. They produce 8 Newton maximum resultant when they are acting in the same direction. And they produce minimum resultant when they are acting in opposite direction. What is the minimum resultant? Minimum resultant is 6 Newton. Therefore, the resultant of two vectors should be equal or greater than 6 Newton, equal or less than 8 Newton. They never produce 4 Newton resultant. Why? මෙයාට හදන්න පුළුවන් minimum එක පුතේ 6 Newton. Therefore, the answer is fifth one. They never produce 0 resultant. මෙයාට කවදාවත් ළමයි 4 Newton හදන්න බෑ. Got my point? Right. Let's see the next question. Right, Lamai, let's see the next question. Which of the following diagram indicates the addition of 5 Newton and 12 Newton correctly? Pute, before answering the question, let's revise the triangle law. In the triangle law, you need to represent given two vectors taken in magnitude and direction taken in the same order. Right, then the closing side of the triangle represent the resultant. Okay, here you have represent 12 Newton and 5 Newton forces taken in the same order. Then you can identify that this angle is 90 degree. Therefore, you will obtain a right angle triangle. Therefore, the length of this side should be equal to 5 squared plus 12 squared. 5 squared 25, 12 squared 144, 169. And this side is squared kilogram square root 169. Then x should be equal to 30. And Pute, this one is the maximum resultant that can produce by 5 Newton and 12 Newton when they are acting in parallel. Right? Here, when you represent two vectors, you can observe that there is an angle between 5 Newton and 12 Newton. Therefore, the resultant of the 5 Newton and 12 Newton should be less than the maximum value. Why? They produce this maximum resultant when they are acting in the parallel direction. Right, Pute? Therefore, the length of this side should be 13, not 17. And this answer is wrong. Right? Length of this side should be 13, not 17. Right? Pute, me first එකයි third එකයි same answers තියෙන්නේ, same choices, same diagram තියෙන්නේ. ඒක නිසා මම ඒක ආපහු explain කරන්නේ නැහැ. Then let's see the second one. In the second diagram, they have represent 5 Newton and 13 Newton taken in the same order, in their magnitude and direction. Then this closing side represent the resultant of 5 Newton and 13 Newton. But in the question, you need to find resultant of 5 and 12, not 5 and 13. This diagram represent resultant of 5 and 13. You need to find the resultant of 5 and 12. No? Fourth one. In the fourth one, they have represent 13 Newton and 12 Newton taken in the same order. Then this one is the resultant of 13 and 12 Newton. But in the question, you need to find the resultant of 5 and 12. එතකොට මේක වැරදි. මොකද මේකේ පෙන්නන්නේ resultant of 13 and 12. Got it? Then fifth one, in the fifth one, they have represent 5 Newton and 12 Newton taken in the same order. Then this closing side, you will obtain the resultant taken in the opposite order. Right? පුතේ මේක හරිනේ. මේකේ පෙන්නනවා resultant of 5 Newton and 12 Newton, 13, right? Therefore, the correct answer is the fifth one, right? Let's see the next question. Right, today let's see the question number 3. In this question, they have given coplanar concurrent force system. You need to identify correct vector diagram that gives the resultant of these three forces, right, Pute? To identify the correct vector diagram, you can apply the parallelogram law. අපි මේ order එක ගමු. This one is the first vector, second vector and third vector. Right. මෙයාව ගත්තා මේ F. Then the second vector acting at an angle 60 degree with the horizontal. Then the third vector acting at an angle 120 degree with the horizontal. This one is the open polygon you can obtain when you represent these vectors taken in same order in their magnitude and direction. But Pute, here you can observe that this answer is not among the given choices. Right? මේක ළමයි choices වල නැහැ. That is, you need to change the order. ළමයි අපි මේ ගතපු order එක අපිට වෙනස් කරන්න ඕන. මතක තියාගන්න මේක important point එකක්. Right, Pute, you can change the order according to your convenience. ඒ කියන්නේ ඔයාට ඕන විදියට ළමයි order එක change කරන්න පුළුවන්. There is no rule which vector should be represented first, which vector should be represented second. But when you represent vectors, you must start representing the second vector at the terminal point of the first vector. You can put a head to tail method එක follow කරන්න වෙනවා. And you should keep the magnitude and direction of each vector constant. ඒ කියන්නේ යාලගේ magnitude එකයි direction එකයි change වෙන්න දෙන්න බෑ. අනිත් එක තමයි head to tail method එක follow කරන්න වෙනවා. ඔයා A points දෙක follow කරන ගමන් ඔයාට මේ vectors represent කරන order එක change කරන්න පුළුවන්. Right? Let's see the answer. මම මෙහෙම ගන්නම්. This one is the first one, this one is the second one, then this one is the third one. බලමු. You can represent the first vector, then this one is the second vector at an angle 120 degree with the horizontal, then this one is the third one at an angle 60 degree with the horizontal. Then මේ ළමයි මේ choice එක තියෙනව නේද ඔයාලගේ answers වල? Therefore the answer is this one. බලන්න choice එක කීයද? Fifth, not fourth one. Right? Right, ළමයි. Let's see the question number 4. Which of the following set of forces never produce a zero resultant? Right, today related theory point we have discussed in our theory class. Right, today let's see the answer. To produce zero resultant for given three forces, for given three coplanar concurrent forces, they should be follow the following conditions. මොකක්ද ළමයි condition එක? Sum of the magnitude of two smaller forces. අපි හිතමු මේ දෙන්න තමයි පොඩි දෙන්න කියලා. ඒ දෙන්නගේ magnitude එක should be equal or greater than the largest force. අපි හිතමු ලොකුම කෙනා S කියලා පුතේ. මෙයාලගේ පොඩිම අය දෙන්නගේ magnitude එක අපි මෙයා P කියලා ගමු, මෙයා Q කියලා ගමු. S මේ දෙන්නගේ magnitudes වල sum එක equal or greater than වෙන්න ඕන මේ ලොකුම කෙනාට වඩා. Right? පුතේ, if the magnitude of P plus Q is greater than S, then they can produce a triangle. If the angles are set, then they can complete a triangle taken in the same order, then the resultant is 0. If the sum of the magnitude of two smaller forces is equal to the largest force, then they never produce triangle, but when the two smaller forces are acting parallel to each other and opposite to the largest one, then they can produce the zero resultant. The the next one is, you should remember, if P plus Q is less than S, they never produce zero resultant. හරිද ළමයි? එතකොට conditions දෙකක් තියෙනවා. First condition එක තමයි P plus Q should be equal or greater than S. Second condition එක තමයි ළමයි, angle among the vectors, angle among the forces should be set to form this triangle or this zero resultant. Right? අපි බලමු ළමයි මේ sets මේ conditions follow කරනවාද කියලා. එහෙම වුණොත් එයාලට zero resultant හදන්න පුළුවන්, but you should remember to form zero resultant, angle among the vectors should be set. Right? අපි angles දීලා නැති නිසා, angles are not given, no, therefore you can consider the magnitudes. මේ magnitudes set වෙනවද බලමු. මේ relation එක මේ magnitudes follow කරනවද කියලා බලමු. Let's see the answers. First one, 10 Newton, 10 Newton, 10 Newton. පුතේ, if the angle among the vectors are set, then they can produce equilateral triangle taken in the same order. That is, they can produce zero resultant. For the second one, 12 Newton, 20 Newton and 8 Newton. මේ දෙන්නනේ පොඩි දෙන්න ළමයි. Sum of the magnitude of the two smaller forces is equal to 20 Newton. Therefore, they can produce zero resultant, but you should remember angle among the vectors should be set. ඒ කියන්නේ මෙතන these two vectors should be acting in the same direction, they should be parallel, and this one should be acting opposite to the 12 Newton and 8 Newton. එතකොට යාළුවට zero resultant හදන්න පුළුවන් මේ විදියට නේද පුතේ? Then the third one, these two they can produce an isosceles triangle, therefore they can produce zero resultant. For the fourth one, okay, these are the two smaller vectors, no? These are the two smaller forces. The sum of the two smaller forces is less than the largest one. Therefore, they never produce a triangle. Therefore, they never produce zero resultant. Therefore, the answer is fourth one. මෙයා ළමයි කවදාවත් zero resultant එකක් හදන්නේ නැහැ. Fifth එක check කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ ළමයි. ඉතින් check කරත් මේ 20 plus 32, 52. 52 is greater than 40. Therefore, they can produce zero resultant. මෙයා triangle එකක් complete කරලා හදන්න පුළුවන් නේ. This one never produce zero resultant. Right? Let's see the next question. Right, ළමයි, let's see the question number 5. They have given three concurrent coplanar forces, 7 Newton, 3 Newton, and 15 Newton. The value of the resultant which cannot be obtained from these three forces, right? මෙයාලගෙන් ගන්න බැරි resultant එක තමයි අහන්නේ. First of all, you need to identify what is the maximum and minimum resultant they can produce, right? පුතේ? බලන්න, they produce maximum resultant when they are acting in same direction, when they are acting in parallel. එතකොට මේක තමයි ළමයි maximum එක. කවුද එතකොට? R max is equal to the sum of the forces. එතකොට 10 plus 15, 25 Newton. This one is the maximum resultant. Then you need to identify whether they can produce zero resultant or not. පුතේ මේ දෙන්නගේ sum එක බලන්න. These are the two smaller vector, no? 7 plus 3 is less than 15. That is, they never produce zero resultant. මෙයාට zero resultant එකක් ගන්න බෑ. Then you need to identify what is the minimum resultant can they produce. පුතේ මේක මතක තියාගන්න. මෙයා minimum resultant හදන්නේ. They produce minimum resultant when the two smaller vectors are acting parallel to each other and opposite to the largest vector. පුතේ මේ vectors තුනෙන් මේ වෙලාවේදී තමයි මෙයා minimum resultant එක හදන්නේ. That is, the minimum resultant is equal 5 Newton. Therefore, the resultant of three vector should be equal or greater than 5, equal or less than 25 Newton. එතකොට පුතේ 0 Newton, 26 Newton, 4 Newton මේ තුනම මෙයාට හදන්න බෑ. Right? Let's see the next question. Right, පුතේ, read the question number 6. Three forces, 7 Newton, 12 Newton, and 17 Newtons. They are coplanar concurrent forces are acting on an object. The value of the resultant which cannot be obtained from these three forces. Today, first of all, you need to identify maximum and minimum resultant. Maximum में कौन दलमाई? They produce same question ने दलमाई. They produce maximum resultant when they are acting in the same direction. That is, the maximum resultant is equal to 19 plus 36. Maximum resultant is 36. Then you need to identify what is the minimum resultant they can produce. The minimum resultant, Pute, did you see? The sum of the two smaller forces, 7 plus 12 is 19, no, is greater than 17 Newton. That is, they can produce zero resultant. Therefore, the result R minimum is 0. Therefore, the resultant of two vectors can be equal or greater than 0 or equal or less than 36 Newton. Therefore, the answer 0, okay. You cannot obtain 37 Newton. 37 ගන්න බෑනේ ළමයි. You cannot obtain 37 Newton. Fifth one is the answer. මේක ගන්න බෑ ළමයි. Right? Let's see the question number 7. In this question, it would be nice if the angle among the vectors are given, right? අපි ගමු මේක 45, මෙයා 45 කියලා. Then you can observe that these are equal, these vectors having equal magnitudes. නේ ළමයි මෙයාලා මේ circle එකේ radi නේ. Then their magnitudes are equal. Then first of all, you can consider the resultant of OC and OA. Right? අපි දෙන්නගේ resultant එක බලමු ළමයි. OA and OC. පුතේ, if this one is OA, this one is OC. අපි මෙයාගේ length magnitude එක R කියලා ගමු. Then their magnitudes are equal, no? Then the resultant of these two vector bisect the angle between the two vector. That is, this resultant passes through the OB vector. OB තියෙන ළමයි 45 වලින්. Then you can obtain the resultant. You can apply the parallelogram law to find the resultant of OC and OA. R squared is equal to P squared plus Q squared plus 2PQ cos theta නේ පුතේ. මෙතන angle between the two vectors is 90. Then this term මේක බිඳුවක් වෙනවා. Then R squared plus R squared is equal to capital R squared. Then 2R squared. Then R is equal to square root 2 simple R squared. Then root 2 into simple R. This length is root 2 into simple R. Now you have reduced these two forces into single force. This one is the resultant of OC and OA. No? Then you can find the resultant of the system. This one is OB. OB is again simple R plus the resultant of OC and OA, root 2R. Then the resultant is R plus root 2R, R bracket වලින් එළියට ගමනේ 1 plus root 2. Instead of simple R, you can write here OA, OB, right? OB times 1 plus root 2. This one is the resultant of the force system. Right? Third one. Right? Right, Lamai, let's see the question number 9. No, question number 8, right? You need to consider the component. XY component is in over there. Make it easy, ba? Right. Then no need to consider the components of this one acting towards the horizontal direction, no? 30 Newton, right? Then you need to consider the horizontal and vertical component of this 10 Newton. Then this one is 10 cos 45. Vertical component is 10 sin 45. Then this one, this 20 Newton force act vertically upwards. Therefore, you can write here 20. Then again, you need to consider the horizontal and vertical component of this 30 Newton force. This one is 30 cos 60. The other component, horizontal component, is 30 sin 60. 30 sin 60 plus 10. Yeah, this one is 10. Then again, this one acting vertically, this one is acting vertically downward direction. No need to consider the components. Then again, you need to consider the component of this 40 Newton force. There are two components, horizontal and vertical component. Horizontal component is 40 cos 60. 40 cos 60. And the vertical component is 40 sin 60. Then you can simplify these values. Easy puthe me. 10 plus 40 sin 60 is root 3 over 2. That is 20 root 3. 20 root 3 plus 10. Right here, 30 sin 60 root 3 over 2 plus 10. Then the answer is 15 root 3 plus 10. Method 10 sin 45. Sin 45 is 1 over root 2. Oh, rationalize karanna wenawane. You can multiply both denominator and numerator by the root 2, not root 3. Root 2 ke multiply karam. Then root 2 into root 2. Root 2 into root 2, 2. 2 times 1, 2 times 5. 5 root 2. Plus 20 plus 30 cos 60 is half. 15. 20 plus 15, 35. Right? I would make up simplify karanna ona. 30 plus 10 again 1 over root 2 rationalize karamune. You can multiply both numerator and denominator root 2 වලින්. Then 2 times 1, 2 times 5. Then 40 cos 60 is half. Kai metana this side. Then the answer is 20 plus 30, 50 plus 5 root 2. Then you can simplify the values. These are the final values. 5 root 2 plus 35. This one is 10 plus 20 root 3. This one is 50 plus 5 root 2. This one is 15 root 3 plus 10. Then what should be the component? You need to consider x and y component. These are acting opposite direction. No? Then you can consider the difference. 50 minus 10, 40 plus 5 root 2 minus 15 root 3. These are the horizontal component. Then you need to consider the vertical components. 35, these are acting opposite direction. Therefore, 35 minus 10, 25. Then 5 root 2 minus 20 root 3. X component should be 20 plus 5 root 2 minus 15 root 3. Right, today let's see the answer. Second one, right? Horizontal component is 40 minus 15 root 3 plus 5 root 2. Vertical component, y component, 25 minus 20 root 3 and 5 root 2. Second one. Second one is the answer. Right, Pute? Let's see the next question. Right, Pute, let's see the answer for the question number 9. In this question, you can observe that these two forces, F1 and F2, are equal in magnitude, opposite in direction. They have equal length on this. If they have equal length, that is they have equal magnitude. In this case, these two forces have equal magnitudes and acting opposite to each other. Therefore, you can cancel out these two forces. Right, Pute? Then you can compare F2 and F5. Pute, they are acting in opposite direction. And then you can compare their magnitudes. Pute, did you see length of this line segment that represent F5 vector, magnitude of F5 vector is about twice the length of this line segment. මෙයා වගේ දෙකක් වගේ පේනව නේද ළමයි? Therefore, you can reduce this length from this one. They are acting in opposite direction. No? Therefore, the F5 minus F2 මේ වගේ මේ length එකෙන් භාගයක් එන්න ඕන ළමයි downward direction එකට. Same thing happen here. F3, F6 are acting in opposite direction. Angle between the two vector is 180. And again, you can observe that this line segment, length of this line segment is about twice the length of this one. Therefore, you can reduce this length. Got it? Then you can consider the component of these final vectors, right? You can consider the horizontal component. Did you see, Pute? These two components are equal in length, opposite in direction, therefore they cancel out. Then from here to here, there are two components, they are vertical components, and therefore the resultant should be ODC. 2OD is equal to OC. May component they are acting in parallel direction. No? Then the resultant is OD plus OD. These two components cancel out. OD plus OD is 2OD. 2OD කියලා answer එකක් නැහැ. Therefore, answer should be OC. Got it? Right, lamai. Let's see the next question. Let's see the question number 10. Resultant of two forces given is perpendicular to root 3. Resultant is perpendicular to the root 3. මෙම දීලා තියෙනවා date එකක්. The angle between the resultant and 2 Newton forces, you need to find this angle. Putala, did you remember last day we discussed same question by using a parallelogram law? We discussed 3 types of parallelogram that you can obtain for the obtuse angles. Then you can select the relevant parallelogram according to the given data. Then you can construct this parallelogram for this diagram. ළමයි කලින් paper කලින් recording එක බලන්න මම මේක explain කරනවා. Then you can construct the parallelogram. This one is the parallelogram. These are the parallel side, no? They are equal in length. Then you can identify this angle by considering sine alpha. Sine alpha is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite is root 3, hypotenuse is 2. Then alpha is equal to sine inverse root 3 over 2. That is 60 degree. That is angle between this resultant and root 2 is, sorry, this 2 Newton force is 60 degree. Right, Bute, let me explain the answer for the question number 11. Right, බලන්න 11ට ළමයි. AB plus BC plus CD plus DE plus AF. Same order එකට represent කරලා තියෙනවනේ ළමයි. Then the resultant is AF. AF. Then the resultant is AD plus BC plus CD plus AF. 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 AD plus This one is the starting point. This one is the absolute terminal point. Then the resultant is AF. මේ set එකටම ළමයි ඔයාලට resultant එක ගන්න පුළුවන් AF. This one is the closing side now. Then again AG plus GF. Again the resultant is AF. Therefore the answer is 2AF. මේව නම් easy නේද ළමයි? Then same thing, you can identify the resultant for this question. OA plus AB plus BC. What is the resultant, Bude? OA plus AB plus BC plus CD. Resultant is the closing side. AD. Sorry, OD. Then OE plus ED. What is the resultant? Closing side in opposite order, OD. Then OF plus FD. Then again resultant is OD. Therefore the answer is 3OD. මේ බලන්න. මෙතනින් ළමයි එක OD එකක් එනවා. Then OE plus ED. Again OD මේ. ආපහු OF plus FD OD. එතකොට answer 3OD. Right, Bude? Today I will explain question number 13, 14, 15 and 16 in your theory class. Let me explain the last 4 questions, right? Right, Bude, let me explain the question number 17. They have given 2 forces at an angle theta. මෙදිනගේ අතර angle එක theta කියලා දීලා තියෙනවා. Right, Bude? Find the resultant of the 2 vector. Bude, you cannot obtain this answer by using parallelogram law. If you apply parallelogram law, you will obtain p squared plus q squared plus 2pq cos theta. එතකොට එන්නේ ළමයි මේ වගේ එකක්. 2p squared cos theta. ඔයාට මේ choices වලින් එකක් ගන්න බෑ. Right, Pute? You will not be able to get this answer by using parallelogram law, right? How to obtain the answer? Pute, to obtain the answer, you can consider the components, right? First of all, you need to know, Pute, these 2 vectors are equal in magnitude, no? Therefore, the resultant of 2 vectors should bisect the angle between the 2 vectors. මේක ගැන idea එකක් තියෙනවා ළමයි. මෙයා bisect කරනවා කියලා. Therefore, angle between the resultant and one vector should be theta over 2. මේ angle එක theta over 2 වෙන්න ඕනේ. Then you can consider the component of p vector parallel to this acting line of the resultant and perpendicular to this line. Let me explain. මේ බලන්න ළමයි මම මෙයාගේ component එකක් ගන්නවා p cos theta over 2. The other component is perpendicular component is p sin theta over 2. Again, you can consider the component of this force. This one is p cos theta over 2. The other component is the perpendicular component, p sin theta over 2. Okay, now you can observe that these 2 forces are acting opposite direction. Therefore, they mutually cancel out. ඒව ළමයි opposite direction වල තියෙන එයා cancel වෙනවා. Then the resultant is the sum of these 2 components. මොකක්ද sum එක ළමයි? p cos theta over 2 plus p cos theta over 2. The answer is 2p cos theta over 2. Got my point? මේක තමයි answer එක. මේක parallelogram law apply කරලා ඔයාලට ගන්න බෑ. Right? Let's see the next question. In the next question, you need to identify the difference between the 2 vectors, right? Okay, to identify the difference between the 2 vectors, to derive an expression for the difference between the 2 vectors, you can construct a parallelogram. Okay, first find the resultant of 2 vectors by using parallelogram law. P plus P. This one is the angle between the 2 vectors. These 2 vectors are equal, no? Therefore, you will obtain a rhombus as the parallelogram. මේ parallelogram එක ළමයි rhombus එකක්. Then this is the diagonal that represents the addition of the 2 vectors. This one is the other diagonal of the parallelogram represents the difference between the 2 vectors. And you should remember, in a rhombus, these 2 diagonals bisect perpendicular to each other. මෙයාලා bisect වෙනවා ළමයි perpendicularly. Then, පුතේ These two vectors are equal in magnitude, no? Therefore, this resultant of the two vector bisect the angle between the two vectors. This angle should be theta over 2, this one should be theta over 2. Now you can obtain the length of this diagonal by applying trigonometry ratio for this right angle triangle. Why? When you construct a parallelogram to find the resultant of two vector, the diagonal that passes through the common initial point represent the vector sum resultant. The other diagonal represent the difference. Uda, now you can construct an expression for the length of this diagonal. Why? This diagonal represent the difference between the two vector. Right. Let's see. Uda, this one is a right angle triangle. I mean diagonals lamai perpendicularly bisect වෙන්නේ. Then you can write here sine theta over 2. If this length is x, opposite over hypotenuse p, then x is equal to p times sine theta over 2. Then the length of this diagonal should be 2x. It is equal to 2p sine theta over 2. This one is the difference. The addition is equal to 2p cos theta over 2. Difference is equal to 2p sine theta over 2, right? First, you need to draw a parallelogram to identify the resultant. Then this diagonal that passes through the common initial point represent the vector sum. The other diagonal represent the difference. Then you can obtain an expression for the length of this diagonal by using the given data. You should remember these two vectors are equal in magnitude. Therefore, the resultant bisect the angle. Therefore, this angle is theta over 2. And this one is a rhombus. In a rhombus, this diagonal bisect perpendicular to each other. Right? ඉතින් ඔය points වලින් ළමයි extra expression එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. Let's see the next question. Right, Pute, by using these two expression for the resultant of the two vector and expression for the difference, expression for the addition of the two vector and expression for the difference of the two vector, you can answer for the 19th one. Sum of the two vectors. Sum of the two vector is 2p cos theta over 2 divided by addition of the difference of the two vector 2p sine theta over 2 is equal to x. Then for the below statement, x double when p is double, p to p cancel out no ළමයි. ඉතින් උඩ p වැඩි වුණා කියන්නේ යටත් p double වෙනවා. ඉතින් p to p cancel වෙනවා. Statement එක wrong statement එකක්. x double when theta is double. පුතේ මෙයා එන්නේ theta වලින් නෙවෙයිනේ. theta ගේ cos ratio එකක්නේ. මෙයා එන්නේ theta වලින් නෙවෙයි. sin ratio එකක්. එතකොට අපිට එයා double වෙනකොට මේක කොහොමද change වෙන්නේ කියලා කියන්න බෑ. අපිට ඒකට හරියට උත්තරයක් දෙන්න බෑ. Got it? Then third one, x doesn't change when p doubles. Third one is the answer. ඇයි ළමයි? මෙයා p to p cancel out වෙනවනේ. x does not depend on p. ඒ කියන්නේ p double නෙවෙයි triple වුණත් ළමයි x change වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Therefore the answer is the third one. Right? Right, Pute, read the question number 20. If the sum of the two vectors is equal to the difference of the if the sum of the two vector is equal to the difference between the same two vectors, right? Okay, let me explain. If P and Q are the two vectors, when you represent two vectors by using adjacent side of a parallelogram, the diagonal passes through the common initial point represent the addition. Q vector plus P vector. The other diagonal of the parallelogram represent the difference. Q vector minus P vector. Right? According to this statement, these two diagonals should be equal. ළමයි parallelogram එකක diagonal දෙකම equal වෙනවා. The parallelogram should be a square. නේ නැත්නම් වෙන එකක් නෑනේ ළමයි. Therefore square කියන්නේ special parallelogram එකක් නේ ළමයි. මෙයා P නම් මෙයා P, angle between the two vector should be 90 degree and these are the two diagonals. නේ addition එක difference එකට equal වෙනවා කියන්නේ මොකද වෙන්නේ ළමයි? Addition එක represent කරනවා diagonal that passes through the common initial point. The difference between the two vector represent the the other diagonal of the parallelogram. ඉතින් මේ diagonals දෙක equal වෙන්නේ ළමයි කාගේද? rhombus එකක equal වෙන්නේ නැහැ. Right? මේ දෙන්න equal වෙන්නේ square එකක. Therefore, the two vectors are equal in magnitude. Angle between the two vectors is 90 degree. Question number 20 වලට answer එක fifth one. Got it? Right ළමයි. හරි. ඔන්න ළමයි මේක questions 4ක් ඉතුරුනාම I will discuss these questions in your theory class. මේක මේ paper එකේ මේ explanation එක බලලා ඔයාලගේ test එකට ready වෙලා ඉන්න. අපි test එක මේ week එකේ තියෙනවා, right?